technology is the most powerful change in the world of education. Welcome to the video interview series Augmented Reality-Based Technology in the Classroom, delivered to you by Clever Books Company. Hello everyone, hello listeners, hello our visitors. Today we have Kevin Merges with us for our podcast video interview, Augmented Reality-Based Technology in Education. Hello Kevin.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Thank you for being with us today, and I will give you the word. Please introduce yourself.
My name is Kevin Merges. I work at Rutgers Preparatory School in Somerset, New Jersey in the United States. And we've been doing augmented reality and virtual reality with the students throughout this school year.
Okay, I'm so excited to hear about your experience, what you have already implemented, and how the teachers are doing that, and most exciting to know how the kids are adjusting to this new way of learning.
Yeah, it's really exciting seeing the students interact with it. And, both VR and AR. And what is probably most exciting for me is that the teachers come to us after the different sessions and often tell us that the kids report that this was the best day they've ever had in school.
Sounds fantastic. So tell me a little bit more about what you have adopted already in school, and again, for which subjects, for which school grades?
Right. So all of the students, kindergarten through 5th grade, have done some form of virtual reality and, in most cases, augmented reality. I think we did a Google Expedition, came in, and we had the Google Expedition VR set that we purchased last summer, but Google is going around to schools right now and working with the schools to try out the AR of the Expedition. I think they plan on releasing that this summer. And so we had, I think, almost every student from kindergarten through 8th grade in the augmented reality Google Expedition throughout that day when they were on campus. They run two rooms simultaneously, and and they bring in all the devices and they make it very easy and nice. We ran the youngest students focused on the space exploration. So we have pictures of kindergarten students holding up a device, and there's an asteroid floating in front of them, and they're just like the awe and fascination. And, the pictures are just so outstanding as the kids look at this. And then we had they did volcanoes, and having the students be able to get up and move around with the device and see a different side, because it's all three-dimensional. And we did dinosaurs and a couple other science type lessons. One of the things that we find fascinating is these tools allow us to do things with the students that were not possible before. So we can go out and show the students a three-dimensional model of a beating heart or something like that, so and trying to help work with the teachers to find where AR fits into their classroom, and how they can engage the students more. The model we use when we talk about it with the teachers is in 2008, I think, Apple released the iPad. Mm-hmm. About 15 months later, we had about 1 million iPads in schools. And then a year later, we had about 10 million iPads in schools. But, right, and that's during the financial crisis. And the schools were buying the iPads. But by this September, Google and Apple combined are estimating 600 million devices in the hands of everyone, that are walking into the classroom. So we're not even asking schools to buy iPads, right? We're just saying, why don't you go out and just use the resources that are already there? One of the ones that we use There, GeoGebra is that's been around for a while, but they now have an AR version, and so our calculus students can see what happens with a parabola when you rotate it, and that three-dimensional function or vision is often difficult or has been difficult for students in the past, but this makes it much more it's much easier to see what happens when you spin and get a bowl out of a parabola. Those rotations were very hard. When I taught calculus years ago, and one of the things we used to do to teach students to think three-dimensionally was to have them turn their book upside down and read it, right? Because they had to have a version of the letters in a different way, and we don't need to struggle with those tools to get them to visualize 3 dimensions anymore, because it's there. It's so incredible. We started playing with the new app Frogopedia, so they can see like the circulatory system and the nervous system of a frog without actually having to have the resources of a frog for every student to dissect or something like that. For me, this is you've seen pilots trained in virtual reality for many years, because it's very expensive and dangerous for a pilot to train on an actual plane. Absolutely. Right? You have a resource there. People could die if somebody crashes. So you want them to practice a lot. So whether we use we can save resources by having the kids first learn in AR. And there's a lower expense for the schools. It's just, there's so many different ways we can integrate this throughout the curriculum and not replace things, but it's augmented reality. It augments. It adds to everything that we have. Scanning a book and having it, a video come alive for a student is just more engaging. And we talk a lot about as an industry, the engagement of students. And I think this is just another way to get to a visually oriented population that we have in schools now.
Absolutely. And that was one of my next questions is what is your perception? What do you think augmented reality really helps the kids with? Which skills does it help to develop? Or what are the opportunities that are there that only augmented reality can give to the students to excel their learning?
So one of the things I think is that this gives students things that they never had. It gives students the opportunity to see things. I used to struggle as a math teacher with drawing in chalk or a white erase board a 3-dimensional object on a flat plane. I don't need to do that anymore. I can give them the 3-dimensional object. I can just, type it in and say, okay, type this 3-dimensional equation into your phone, and then it'll appear on the desk in front of them. There's so much potential. The chemistry class is playing with an app called Happy Atoms. Okay. So very ball and stick model type that has been around since certainly I took chemistry many decades ago. But now they scan it and it tells them something about the compound that they made. Really amazing. The potential that's there for the students, and what does an actual 3-dimensional object look like? We always saw pictures of a heart in my textbooks, but now you can see the 3-dimensional shape of it, and it's different. You're not counting on the students trying to figure out what it might look like 3-dimensionally. You actually have that opportunity to give them the information and help them visualize it. And you have this population that is much more visually learner focused. They get constant input that way. So it's not like we throw out handwriting or something like that. We still have the students do all the regular things. This just adds
it's
to
just a supplementary tool to existing curriculum and the way of teaching.
Right, right. It allows the teacher to get out things that weren't possible before. And like you said, supplementary. It's not, we're not replacing things. We may have to manage our time a little bit better. There are certain things that we don't teach anymore. It was quite popular 100 years ago in our school to add large columns of numbers because students need to add those quickly in their head. But, now we know that they'll have a calculator and they'll be able to compute, 15 numbers that are 5 digits each, quickly in a calculator. So we don't stress that skill, but what do we add in its place? And some of the things that we add are through augmented reality and tours, so they can see, in a history lesson, we with AI and AR in a few years, we should have a Abraham Lincoln standing up in front of us on the desk, giving, a speech. We should have, all this potential to watch, John Kennedy's speech. We can see that in 2 dimensions. Can we see it in 3 dimensions? Can it be right in front of us? How do we connect with all this new information? It's going to be really fascinating to see where the students go with this.
Absolutely, and it's not only the matter that they can interact with existing preset scenarios of different subjects that are transformed to augmented reality, but it's also a matter of creating their own and creating new experiences, what you said, taking some kind of event and then augmenting it and then doing the presentation in a totally different way, again, developing different skills and giving the opportunities for the kids to learn in a totally different way.
Yeah. One of our favorite apps is IKEA, and not because it's good in the classroom, but it makes it easy for someone to see what it would look like with that furniture in that place. Right? So you're able to take things that weren't possible before and try them out. And at there's no resources. A little bit of electricity was used to see this. So how does that become part of the classroom? How do we, in a ceramics classroom, they can play and see what happens when they poke a pot spinning on a wheel here or there, and, and get those initial reactions down without, the resource of using up a lot of clay or something like that.
So I see you've tried everything, even the IKEA app you managed to bring to the classroom.
Yeah, we talk to the kids like, okay, let's design a classroom, and so right now we use IKEA.
That's absolutely amazing. I haven't heard of that yet, to be honest, but that's a brilliant idea.
Yeah, it's so amazing. And somebody put out that IKEA is trying to build the app of the IKEA directions to put together the furniture. So when you scan the directions, it shows you, oh, this piece will go over here, which for me, I struggle with this, right? I can see the directions, but I always mess them up and I have to go back and so having that 3D modeling potential, for the architecture students, it's really amazing.
Okay, and if we come back to the classroom and specifically what teachers get when they do have immersive technology and augmented reality tools for teaching, what is your opinion? How does it help them in their day-to-day teaching life?
So I think there's a lot of focus right now on VR, but I think that AR is a better tool for teachers starting in immersive technologies. And one of the reasons is it does not separate the student from the teacher. The students are holding up a device. They're still in the classroom. It's very similar to a book. Students have their book open in class. Students have their device open in class. They can project something onto their desk. There's a lot of potential to work with students as they move through augmented reality apps, because most augmented reality apps don't have a lot of audio input right now. And so the kids aren't separated by using headphones from the teacher. So the teachers can move them through and talk to them. What are you seeing? Tell me, describe what you're, what is the surface of that asteroid that's floating in front of you? What does that look like? And you get a much better connection into the environment, especially with young students. There's plenty of people around the world that struggle with the idea of putting young students into that very immersive virtual environment. So I think augmented reality is a good place for teachers to start. And then as they get up into higher levels, it allows you to do things, that weren't possible in the past, like the calculus. And, somebody's putting out one where you can do chemistry labs. Right? So when you put chemistry labs together, if I'm in the lab and I mix the wrong things, there's a big explosion, and that's a problem. But if it blows up in AR, well, okay. We played a little bit with Z-Space. They make the Rube Goldberg machines, but you can change the gravitational system to Mars or the moon and have the students learn that a ball would roll differently, and things react differently in other. It's not possible for me to take my class to the moon and see, is everything going to be the same here? What's going to be different? And, AR gives you that opportunity to just change a little bit of a setting here or there and see what would be different.
Absolutely, and I really like that you said you can practice doing all the chemistry experiments in AR, and then what worked actually implemented in real life instead of practicing it in real life.
Right. In the U.S., we have regulations about a chemistry lab can't have a floor above it, because just in case there's an explosion. If we're all practicing in AR, then it's not as dangerous anymore.
Yes, we're talking about safety, but if we talk about the lesson planning for use of augmented reality in the classroom, in your school, do the teachers prefer to have just an application and then they experiment with it on their own and set certain objectives for the lessons, etc.? Or some teachers would actually prefer to have a preset lesson plan with ideas how this particular application can be implemented in a classroom?
So I think it kind of depends a little bit on the type of classroom. So we're an independent school, and our teachers can integrate anything that they feel is appropriate, pretty much. With a little bit of guidance from their department head and the principals, but we don't have to follow a prescribed state curriculum. So I think especially for the augmented app developers out there, targeting the different core curriculum standards or the ISTE standards on, okay, this app does this, it is helpful to the teachers that have to follow those. But I think that a lot of teachers are going to want to try it out and be familiar with it, and then integrate those lesson plans into something that already exists. We see that a lot in our we have one person who's one of our librarians who's very, she's great with AR, VR, and 360 filming. And so when she talks to the lower school teachers, she digs out an app or some kind of supplement to the lesson that already exists. So right now, we've just been integrating into things that are already existing. So they're studying penguins or bats or something like that, then they get augmented information on that topic. We have not created yet a standalone focused on AR where that's driving, but I see that coming soon. We have one strain of courses called innovation courses, and so 2 years ago, one of the innovations that we added was app building for the students, like third, fourth grade up. They started building their own apps, mobile apps. So now the AR kit's out, and how do we get those kids building that? We're adding, in the upper school, we're adding a course in Unity programming in this coming September. So trying to get the old creating. Large quantities of information in the lower grades are consumed. Mm-hmm. The upper grades, we focus on creation. So, the middle years we're, transitioning over. Not to say that the little kids don't create, but they're still in that stage where they're consuming huge quantities of information. And then by fifth grade, like, we have to do 360 filming with them and, kind of like pick apart the resources that they see and try and get them focused on how to start creating their own.
Okay, so literally they're moving from the stage of trying to see how the scenario is built with augmented reality, how it's done, what is inside, and then gradually they're coming to the point where they're ready to create their own and experiment and show their full potential.
Right, right. And 5 years ago, everything you had to do was coding. Now there's portals where app building is drag and drop, and we already see like the AR and VR resources that are available in platforms now. So I don't need to know how to program a chair. I just drag that resource out of some database of resources and build up these. So we don't need all our students to be programmers. We need a balance of students. Some need the artistic input. Some need to, manage the project. It's fast, the evolution process. But we know the AR building in platforms is going to be available to students. My guess is we'll be running a program September of 19 where we'll have somebody's portal where we'll be building, the little kids will be building their own AR apps. They already have been building their own iPhone regular apps.
Wow.
We trying to replace PowerPoint with apps. Like, why make a PowerPoint if you can make an app? So we'll do the same with AR in another year, a couple of months would be my guess.
That's fascinating. And you've mentioned also that you've used so many different applications with augmented reality and different versions. Have you done any measurements or at least a better understanding of, does it actually improve kids' learning, and to which extent?
We have no data yet on what kind of changes we've seen in their learning. We've restructured our computer science. We had no young ladies in our highest level of computer science about 5 or 6 years ago. So we flipped the whole model and started focusing on kindergarten. And those students are now moving up through, they're in 4th and 5th grade, the youngest students that started that. So we're starting to see this change come through, and we try and keep putting more in. So we know we have to add more each year to keep them interested in learning, but we don't have the research yet. We are working on forming a research group to study the impact of immersive environments on students, AR, VR. We feel that they're learning, but it'd be nice if we could actually prove it.
No, that sounds actually fascinating, because we've spoken to so many schools, and they have mentioned that augmented reality at the moment is nice to have but not must have, and only because there are no real proof of measurements of the progress, the learning progress that kids have when they use those applications.
Yeah, I agree. And for me, it's like a lot like Khan Academy, in that the teacher said, yeah, that's nice, and we just don't have any proof that it's helping. And then all of a sudden, half of all the kids in the United States are going home watching Khan Academy videos to learn how to do the lesson that they didn't get when they were in class. So if we don't start integrating augmented reality, then the kids are going to use it because the resources are free or really, really cheap. So the kids can get this without the teachers. So if the teachers don't embrace this and push it in the direction of education, they risk being behind, in what's possible.
Absolutely. And again, coming back to certain applications that we've used, they don't have really educational purpose, but you have managed to find this way, and implement them in the classroom. But as far as I understand that there is a lack now also of application with augmented reality that are strictly curriculum based and have this supplementary aid to the existing curriculum and an existing units of inquiry.
Yeah, I think there's a gap that could be filled there. I started playing with one app last night, and it was teaching students how to recognize different animals, and they had like 3 animals floating out on the desk, and they had to pick the one that was a cow or something like that, and it actually recorded their progress and success, almost like a blend of like a luminosity report on how successful you are at these different tasks. So that kind of report, I think, would help teachers show that this is helping the students grasp a topic. I did some research on, there's something called Cuisinart in math for younger students, and we made a virtual version of it in the iPad 8 years ago or so. We found that the students picked the concepts up faster when it was virtual and forgot them faster. So we ended up going back over the concept a third time or a second. Like 6 months later, we reviewed the concept, and they had not grasped it as fast as the students with the tactile input. So I think the real blend is going to be when AR and haptic get together and you have the tactile input, so that the student, when they reach out and they see this 3D object, they reach out and touch it. Then it gives them more input, more than just holding it in your hand. So when we start to blend those kind of things, and that does put a little bit of an expense on it, because what's the haptic glove input? If the kids need to have some kind of haptic glove to get input, I think that would be that'll be interesting to see how it happens.
It's coming, definitely.
I was at E3 last year in June, and there was a lot of haptic companies, and it's in the mind of people. It's really amazing.
Well, thank you very much for being with us today, and I really appreciate your input. Is there anything else that you would like to cover in today's talk?
The only other thing I can think of that is my new favorite topic is AR audio.
Oh, okay. Can you elaborate on this one, please? I haven't heard on that one yet.
AR that we see with apps is visual. So we see something that's not there. AR audio is going to be, we're going to hear something that's not really there. So this is going to be when we have character recognition, so I hold an app up in another country and I can read the street signs in that country because it translates it to my language. And AR audio, I'll just have my little headphones on and it'll translate what someone else is saying. So they'll speak in their language and I'll hear it in my language. And
that's absolutely amazing.
Right. But that's going to transform our language classrooms. That's going to make sense. There's so many changes coming through that it's going to make it so exciting. What do we do with students in education if they can learn so much of what we used to teach them without a teacher? They can learn it on their own, and they have these tools that will help them. And so where do we go? What do we teach? How do we teach them? Do we become curators of like these giant museums of life, where we're giving the students a little bit of a direction in how to find information, and what do they get out of each app or painting or whatever it is.
Right. And it seems like what you're doing, you're accumulating all the content that is out there to bring it in the classroom, and then go ahead and present it in front of the kids.
Yeah, right. Here's a great tool that you can use for this. You want to do this, here's another great tool that, but it means so much. That idea of lifetime learning is really going to be important for teachers. They have to keep moving in learning more and more.
Yes. Well, thank you very much. It's been a
Thank you.
pleasure having you around. And
Very nice talking to you. Thank you.
yes, maybe the last thing. What would be your suggestion for educators that haven't started using it yet, but are planning? What would you say the first step should be?
I would say go out and start searching for blogs, and I get a lot of information now in Twitter, and people are trying this, and you just go out and search for it. Find something. There's a couple now blogs are starting to put together lists of apps that are out there, teachers that are experimenting with it, and try and connect with them, and it's so fascinating watching this unfold. It's such an exciting time in education.
Well, sounds great and sounds very promising.
Thank you. Yes, thank you very much.
Well, Kevin, thank you very much for being with us here today, and appreciate your time and also your experience that you've shared today.
Hey, it's a lot of fun talking about this.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Everything changes.